Welcome to Project Synapse. We're back for another weekend. I have John Pinard. I got Marcel Gagné. Welcome. Everybody knows we do this once a week. The three of us have been meeting for weeks now to talk about what's happening with AI. And we're all IT professionals, so we've all looking at how we can apply this and how we can make this work. I think we've had a rocket ship ride through this whole set of week by week meetings we've had. I can't believe last week.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it last night, Jim and Marcel, and I was thinking, we thought the 12 days of shipments was crazy and busy and everything else. And I was sitting there last night going, what was it that OpenAI announced? Because there's been so much stuff going on with DeepSeek and Quen and all the rest of it.
Yeah, and most people focus on the large language models as opposed to all the gazillion other things that are out there. And there's like a pile of stuff happening in video generation and music generation. Like we've been focusing on things like Suno and Udio for a while. There's a new player in the game right now, which I was experimenting with yesterday. So everything is taking off.
Who is that?
In artificial intelligence.
Who's the new player?
Fusion. I'll find it for
Yeah,
you.
we'll dig it up. Yeah, because I was going back through some of the multimedia stuff yesterday as well, and going, oh my God, yeah. So we'll have to come back to that, but we can't miss. You have to talk about DeepSeek. When we were talking about,
absolutely.
We restructured the show so that we would cover the news of the week. And there's one story, DeepSeek, the end. No, but it's not like that.
No,
This is like a movie script. So DeepSeek announces first of the week, and they come out and say, we've got a model which is just as good as 4.0. It's a reasoning model. So that might even be 4.03 would probably be the better. The latest model that OpenAI has announced, here you go. It's free. It's open source. Cost us a few million to train. Oh, shucks. But we'll give you that too. So don't bother. You don't even have to spend the $6 million that we spent training it. And by the way, you can have it all, and it's small enough you actually could run it. You could probably get enough hardware to run it if you really set your mind to it. But just in case you don't, here's a smaller model so that you can run that at home. I'm Sam Altman. I've spent $10 billion of Microsoft's money. I've raised untold billions. I'm going to lose $4 to $5 billion this year, and I got to make this back. And I'm dependent on Silicon Valley money. How do I come up and say, how do you compete with free?
Okay. Did you by any chance either of you read the paper by Amadeo?
Yeah.
By Dario Amadeo?
Yep. Tell everybody who Dario Amadeo is.
He is the CEO of Anthropic, and Anthropic is the company behind the Claude AI model. Claude 3.5 Sonnet is their flagship at the moment. Despite the fact that there's a bigger model, it's the one that everybody pays attention to and everybody uses, including myself. But he put out a paper where he argued that the costs involved or associated with the cost aspect of it, he says that the cost savings in producing this model, which he calls a distillation of a larger model, is exactly what you would expect from any company doing this today. In other words, DeepSeek has not done anything American companies cannot do at the moment and have not done already. And he would argue that models like O1, for instance, are distillations of GPT-5 or whatever the heck is hiding in the back there, in the back closet over at OpenAI. And that if you take a look at the cost to generate or create that model or these distilled models, it's all in line. In other words, they haven't done anything spectacular in any way that can't be expected.
I think Amadeo, I think he's a wonderful guy. And if I owed a bunch of people $10 billion that they've invested in my company, I'd say something cute too. No, this is total BS. It's if they could do it, why are they spending $500 billion on a data center? Or you could say, I got lots of reasons for that, Jim. But why are they losing so much money in serving people? Because this is a quantum leap. And I think you
should say that. Quant is the name of the company that DeepSeek is under.
Yeah. No, but this is a huge leap in terms of efficiency as well. So you could say anybody could train a model using another model.
Yeah.
They've been struggling with that. And we all talk about the synthetic data and the degradation of models. If they could do this, they would have been doing it better. Somebody scooped them on this. Can they catch up? Absolutely. But they gave away a free version of one of the most sophisticated AI models in the world to everybody who wants to download it.
But I also wonder, Jim, whether this might have been part of the push. At the end of December, we talked about all of the stuff coming out from OpenAI, and we talked about some of it that seemed to be a little bit rushed and so forth. But I also wondered whether maybe Sam Altman was aware of DeepSeek and was trying to get ahead of it by promoting all of the cool things that OpenAI brought out to help them with their sales, to get all of that out to the market before DeepSeek came out.
Watch how fast glasses come out now.
Okay,
Watch how fast.
Can I play devil's advocate a little tiny bit here?
Yes, but remember who you have for a client when you're the devil's advocate.
There are a few interesting arguments. One of them is everybody focuses, and I want to make this clear because it's actually a little bit important. Everybody focuses on this $5.6 million that it costs to train this model, which I accept. I'll accept it at face value. However, they had a huge infrastructure, a big giant data center that they've been using it to run algorithms for their financial business for a number of years. And DeepSeek, as they pointed out, was a sub project. There is something in the past that's been done that way before. And when all of the big companies, Google, for instance, and Amazon were building up their massive infrastructure, they realized at some point, oh my God, we have an amazing infrastructure, ridiculous amounts of processing, ridiculous amounts of memory that we are never going to be able to use up. Hey, I know, we'll rent it to people. And that was the birth of cloud computing in a way. Particularly things like, hey, we've got tons of storage. Why don't we rent you some storage on the internet so that you don't have to have a big, massive hard drive at home? And out of that, we had companies like Dropbox and Box were born and Google Drive and so on. So they had already spent billions on the chips that they had and the data centers that they had. And of course, all the people that they paid, and maybe they pay them less because senior engineers.
I'm not 100% certain of that, though. There's not a lot that's known about this company, except that it's a small company, employs very few people. They do financial quantum analysis. The guys probably are well paid in Chinese terms, but they do have, because of what they do, have what I would think is a fantastic amount of computing power for a small sized firm. But I don't know that they have that they're using the Chinese supercomputer or anything like that.
Oh, no, I didn't say that. I said they already had the infrastructure necessary. So you have to factor that into the cost of the $5.6 billion model. And now, of course, they have to pay. I know, but everybody focuses purely on that $5.6 million. That's what they're looking at. They're going, oh my God, that's all it is. No, you still had to have the data center. You still have to pay the people. Yeah. And now you have to pay the inference time. I realize the inference time is cheap compared to anything that OpenAI and Anthropic is doing, but you still have to pay for it. So somewhere back there's still a data center that is pushing all that stuff out.
But we know that this thing will run on the equivalent of what? 6 major NVIDIA boxes?
12 of those new Mac Minis, apparently.
12 Mac Minis, but yeah. And that has been said, that it will actually run on that. And the code's out there.
Yeah.
So they had to have 12 Mac Minis. I'm retired, and I could do 1/6 of that firm's processing power. Matter of fact, let's get together. John, you probably have a Mac as well. We can't let you until you get a Mac. We'll get together. We've got 2/6, 1/3 of what it takes to take over the world in AI.
I did get one of those digits NVIDIA computers though in June when they come out.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying.
And Marcel can run our model for us.
So no matter how you stack it, you've got 2 alternatives here. Sam Altman is absolutely insane and loves to burn money. And that's why they're going to lose $4 to $5 billion this year in processing costs, because he really could do it on 6 Mac Minis, but he decided not to. Or they hit really bad.
First of all, the model was built on Llama, which was like they built the model off of Llama, which is, of course, something that Meta created. So they are, if you'll pardon the expression, standing on the shoulders of giants. They actually, like the transformer models, the PyTorch technology, all of these modules
and Meta invented all of that stuff. They invented neural networks or anything. No, they stole it from the University of Toronto. They stole it from the University of Toronto, where the taxpayers paid for it. So they're standing on my shoulders right now.
Oh, Canada.
Yeah. I've been paying for this.
Isn't DeepSeek, and correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't DeepSeek R1 essentially closer to an O1 mini than an O1? Like it's like a small language model, is it not?
I don't think so.
Or
It has,
smaller?
it is compact. They've done some stuff to compact it
Okay.
and to make it run more efficiently. That's for sure. But I've been playing with this thing and I can't, it's closer to O3 from what I can see.
Yeah.
It's fantastic in terms of its logic. People who want to diss this model should actually play with it for a little while because
I agree. Yeah.
it'll make you crazy as to what it can do.
We just need to host it somewhere else.
I'm going to jump, I wanted to play devil's advocate on one other point, which
We'll come back.
I want to jump on John's comment here. And you and I had talked about this, Jim, when we went off the air last week, as I recall. I floated this idea. I thought you had Jim, the other Jim, Balsillie, on your podcast 2 weeks ago. And of course, they're putting in, what is it?
$1 million. Yeah.
Why, if we do have a distilled model, if we can get the entire O1 model to fit on a dozen Mac Minis or whatever it is, all joking aside, to me, this seems like it would be a no-brainer for the Canadian government to put up some resources in a data center somewhere to make a large language model of that caliber available to every Canadian free of charge. Here it is. Use this to build your business, use this to innovate, use this to push Canadian technology forward. And of course, we can take out all those guardrails that people are worried about from the Chinese perspective. And we can take out all those security worries, by having the data hosted and cared for in Canada.
So we would do that. Instead, we would support open source. We would get a model that is basically free and give that to all Canadians. And we'd use our taxpayer. The part of the problem is your answer is in your question. You said no brainer. I say no brain. He goes, here's what we're going to do. I got another deal for you. Forget that, Marcel. I got a better deal. I'm going to take $2 billion of your tax money and I'm going to give that to NVIDIA. There is one Canadian company in there that hasn't been bought yet, but they will be, watch out. And I'm going to give all of that IP and all of that to an American firm that's going to build this data center, to NVIDIA that's going to supply the hardware or the chips for it. And we might have a couple of Canadian jobs if we can get a couple of French Canadians to dig a ditch for the thing.
Listen, why don't we get Jim Balsillie on the phone right now? Let's get him on the phone right now. Let's ask him for a few of those $1 million so that we can build this data center. And then we can circumvent the Canadian government and we can do something for the country.
Honestly, we've talked about it. No, we're going to do this after this show. We're going to start a GoFundMe to bring an open AI, like an open source data center to Canada.
So
we'll call it Open A.
EHI. Gentlemen, I had a thought last night. I do have them occasionally, that we talked about how do we get this into Canada? And it's okay. We have this thing called DeepSeek. It's open source. And we have these providers. They're called internet service providers. And so why don't we get these internet service providers to add this as a new feature that they can offer out to their subscribers?
Like Microsoft did?
I'm thinking like Rogers, Bell, Cogeco.
A great idea. No, you could do Microsoft, and I love this. Like, what a difference a day makes. One day Microsoft is putting out this tweet in support of OpenAI. They've stolen this. They've captured this. They've used ChatGPT to steal the data that ChatGPT stole from everybody else, but don't pay no attention to the man behind the curtain in there. And then the next day is, it's on Azure.
So it's all good. Yeah, they promote it.
You gotta love it.
I like the line that Jon Stewart used. He said, "We did not see," or I'm gonna totally botch it here, but we didn't see that coming. AI came and took AI's job.
That's fantastic. So going back to the news that we were going through, you've got this big launch, a big kerfuffle, and that happened. And I think within a couple of days, we discovered that these guys are really brilliant at doing AI. They suck at security. How does?
Yeah,
that sounds familiar, actually. So they got hacked, a denial of service attack, though.
Yes.
Doesn't count. But the next day, somebody went on, hey, you get no password on your database. You might want to have. And that's what I love about it. These guys are just brilliant mathematicians. These are the ones you love. They're just brilliant at developing all this stuff. And they put this out But it's just now, in fairness, here's what I said about this though, is if you are going to log into a Chinese hosted model and you're going to dump your great corporate secrets into this new thing that you just discovered on the internet yesterday, they should get you an Etch-a-Sketch, disconnect you and leave you with that at your desk, because they shouldn't let you on the internet
That
at
was
all.
a Dilbert cartoon, as I recall.
I think I said something like that last week. It's a great tool. DeepSeek is a phenomenal tool that needs to be hosted outside of China in order for people to be comfortable.
We could do it. That's
just like TikTok
now.
Oh, sorry, we do host a lot of our data in China with TikTok. Sorry, I forgot about that. So, I love the people who said what people are so eager to do. This is one of the other great defenses that came up from an OpenAI employee. People are so eager to give away their data to some Chinese company. Yeah, have you heard of TikTok?
Yeah, exactly.
This was predictable, buddy.
TikTok, when it went down in the US, a whole bunch of people flocked over to something called Red Note, I believe. Or at least that's how it translates from the Chinese, and I cannot pronounce the Chinese word, so my apologies. But in the terms of service, it actually says that you are adhering to the principles of the People's Government in China or the CPP, and all these sorts of things are built into it. And you say, yes, I agree to be a good citizen of the CPP. And you agree to that right up front. And to be fair, DeepSeek's terms of service, when you sign up to DeepSeek, actually says right on it, all of the data that you are entering into this thing goes back to our servers in China. Like, they don't even hide it.
OpenAI does. No, the other great outrage in there, it doesn't mention Tiananmen Square. And that's prohibited. This is Chinese propaganda. Go on to OpenAI, or probably try Garth Ashix or whatever his name, the Elon Musk or whatever that country singer is that runs the other thing. Go on and try to get a picture of Donald Trump or say anything bad about Donald Trump on those things.
Yep.
I bet you because I know you get pulled out if you try to do anything. You try to mention Donald Trump on OpenAI now, and it'll say, I can't really talk about that. That's not, at least.
Well, I actually did a video on this yesterday. I uploaded it yesterday, and I didn't share it with you guys, so you haven't seen it. But I put it up on YouTube, and I addressed particularly that thing where you can't talk about these things. And I said, oh, we can trust Google, can't we? And I actually say that in the video. We can trust Google, can't we? And I said, and of course, if you ask Google about Tiananmen Square, it's perfectly happy to give you answers. It's perfectly happy to give you an answer about the Uyghurs. All this sort of stuff is coming through. And then you ask simple questions like, who is Donald Trump? I'm sorry, I can't talk about these things. Who is Joe Biden? I can't talk about that. Who is Justin Trudeau? I'm sorry, I can't talk about that. Who's the president of the United States? I'm sorry, I can't talk about that right now. So it's like, Google, we might argue about the idea that there's Chinese censorship and we don't want to talk about these things. But then we take a look at these American products, the land of free speech, of the First Amendment and so forth. And you cannot even give me a fact. This isn't a political argument like who the president of the United States is or who Joe Biden is or who Justin Trudeau is has nothing to do with politics. It is a fact of who the leader of a particular country is right now, and you're not willing to give me that information because you're afraid of offending somebody.
But hang on.
Censorship? Pot kettle?
Didn't Elon Musk say when he bought X that he was getting, speech?
And they do. Yeah. They cut you out.
Oh, I know.
Free speech is free speech like I want speech.
Yes.
And this is a big thing. I think that what happened last week with DeepSeek was, you could argue about why it happened, why the Chinese did it, why they launched this. I think they did it to poke the Americans in the eye. We're going to give this away, all up, the billions you've invested in this, and we love your $500 billion investment. We're going to give this to people for free. But accidentally, by the magic of open source, and this was a big deal, they did us all a big favor. Because the biggest issue in AI is safety. If we take a look at it, safety and security. If you said safety, security, and accuracy, solve those three things, and we would be in an idyllic position right now.
Yep.
With what we have, we could not forget SI, forget artificial intelligence.
Super intelligence.
Forget AGI. We're probably already long past that. But what we have right now, we could do amazing things if it was accurate, safe, and open for people to get to. And so they did all of that. And now, because the reverse of that is 5 trillionaires control what you think. And even the open source genius of them, Zuckerberg, just
Technically, they're not trillionaires.
yeah, not yet.
Not yet.
because
Give them a couple weeks.
But they will be. Yeah. And I'm not, by the way, I can't, it's hard not to. I tried to stay away from attacking Trump, but the fact is that he's part of an oligarchy. Like we are looking at the new Russia.
Yeah.
And these guys, these 5 guys or 6 guys, the tech bros are going to make a ton of money and they're going to take care of each other. Hence why Zuckerberg settled a suit with Trump for demeaning him now, or slandering him or whatever, libeling him on, I guess is the term. And he wrote him a check for $25 million to make the lawsuit go away.
Yeah.
Why?
That is actually awful. It's awful on so many levels. First of all, it's not a slander. He violated the terms of service.
Yeah.
And they threw him off the platform for violating the terms of service. That is not slander.
It is a case that would get tossed out of court as soon as it gets to a judge.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that these guys control everything, and they control what you can see and what you can't see.
Yes.
And they control what opinions you can have and what opinions you can't have. And I think, who'd have thought that the Chinese would democratize and create true free speech by dumping this out there? Because the Tiananmen Square thing is really easy to fix. You've got the model, retrain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not even that hard.
You don't have to retrain the whole thing either.
You just do that reinforcement training, back end. Don't do that anymore.
It's frightening when you think about, and I know we're talking about the US again, but you've got these 5 individuals that if they want to make more money and the laws don't allow them to, they know a guy that can change the laws. So,
or ignore the laws.
Yeah.
And
Well,
you'll just get pardoned. Doesn't matter.
But I know it's a coincidence. But his name is Don, as in Don Trumpioni.
yes.
The way that he runs the country, it's a nice data center company that you've got out there providing information to the world. It'd be a real shame if something happened to it.
He's already doing that with Canada.
Hey, Tim, nice country you got there. Wouldn't want for something to happen to it, right? Like maybe
Are
somebody
we
comes
in trouble
along.
for this?
So just to recap this for anybody who's out there still staying on this call, is DeepSeek launched an incredible open source AI that has disrupted everything. They've had some teething problems in security. We've had some things that have exposed us to, my God, tell you people not to jump on everything on the internet and put their corporate data into it for at least 2 days. So we've got that. We've got Microsoft has said, we like it enough, we're going to put it on our servers, and you can buy it through Azure now. Some of the other people, I think Eric Schmidt, the CEO, so they've had all these doomers who've come out and said, you shouldn't do this. Eric Schmidt, the former CEO of Google, came out and said, we should be doing more open source. And we have this opportunity. And this is what I wanted to focus on today, because I think the opportunity we have right now, and let me just lay this case out for you, and then I really like people to argue with it, is I'm beginning to sound like a communist, and I'm not. I just don't like oligarchs who compare everything or monopolies. But if we really believe that AI is going to be good for people overall, that's what it's going to do, create great opportunities for people. And we have 2 alternatives. One is we can trust these 5 rich guys that they're actually going to share all of that. I think what AI is going to make a lot of wealth, productivity, and money. It's just a question of who said that? The future's already here. It's just not evenly distributed.
William Gibson, yeah.
The money's here. It's just not evenly distributed. But what's the argument against open source?
Security.
No, but
Security.
the economic argument, though, if we make this available to everybody, doesn't everybody get richer?
No, it'll destroy the entire economy, and really wealthy people won't be able to generate as much wealth to have trickle down to us on the bottom.
I'm tired of being trickled down on.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah. But,
You know what else?
but seriously, but it's an easy, so the question is security on this. Now, all the code is open source. Didn't he, like with a whole group of an unpaid army, develop one of the most secure operating systems in the world?
Yes, in fact, he did. And in fact, it is the most popular operating system in the world, running on more devices and more computers than any other operating system anywhere in the entire world.
Oh, is that
called
Mac
Linux.
OS, Jim?
Mac OS is a
Yeah.
ripoff of Linux and BSD.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah. They do that all the time. But anyway, so the security problem, and this is why everybody rushed on and say, oh, see, but of course it's insecure. Of course it's insecure. A bunch of quants in some office who were mathematicians put this together, put it on the server, and did exactly what they've done at Microsoft and so many other places. There should be a sign that goes up. Hey, guys, just because it's in test or it's a prototype doesn't mean you don't secure it.
Exactly.
They're moving fast and breaking
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
but one of the things, and I know I sound like a broken record, but I always say you have to build security in from the ground up. It's not a bolt on after the fact. And this is part of the problem. Jim, you talked about with DeepSeek and with all of these other tools that they've built it, that it's lacking security. It's not like you can easily go back and go, oh, we'll just add security later.
Building in security from the beginning is all nice and fine. And I accept that. Now, granted, I'm from the days where the system administrator was God.
Yep.
And I was a system administrator for a couple of different companies in the past. And if I wanted to reboot the server at lunch because I wanted to push something into production, too freaking bad. Go to lunch, come back. Things will be running when you come back. I miss those days. I really do. I know it doesn't work that way anymore, but I miss those
yeah.
days.
Me too.
I remember those
Anyway.
guys, and they always said,
This is one
this
of
is
those
a
guys.
small change. It'll never bring anything down. And at
I
4 in the
was
morning,
those
we're all
guys.
working going,
Power.
Yep.
Anyway, but yes, you build in security from the beginning. But the fact of the matter is, at some point, you release the stuff into the world. And you have to be in a position at that point to respond to
Yep.
security issues, as opposed to saying, which is actually one of the things that bugs the hell out of me about these people. We shouldn't actually build AI until we know it's 100% safe. Oh, it's 100% safe. Like ever.
And I'm not suggesting that you don't release anything until it's 100% secure. But there are certain security measures that should be built into everything you do,
like a
regardless of what it
password on
is.
your database.
There's a novel idea.
Yeah.
Just
Change the default password on your router at home.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying is just some of these basic things that you can enhance security later, but you can't build it in from the ground up later.
I'm going to argue with the devil here. I think we could train people to think security doesn't have to cost.
No.
We used to have a privacy commissioner in Ontario who said that privacy doesn't have to cost you. I don't want it to mean civil servants, but there are people who sit in their desks and go, do you have to check these boxes? It's got to have all these rules, and they'll stop all kinds of progress. And our privacy commissioner, Hank Kevorkian, said you can build privacy thinking into stuff when you do it. You can build security into things when you do it. And if you build that as a habit, then you don't have to think about it anymore.
If you're a programmer or a developer, I guess they call them now, and you're programming in, I don't know, C# or assembler or RPG or COBOL, you have to
Or
know
PSLAD.
you have to know the programming language to be able to write the code.
Yep.
To me, security is no different. There are certain steps you need to follow, certain things you need to make sure you incorporate when you are building a system. Those types of things need to be built in as you're going through.
Yep.
It's just one more knowledge base that
Yep.
you need to incorporate into the systems that you build.
The lesson was, and this has happened at Microsoft. How did one big fault happen? Somebody put up a test system. They thought it's a test system. We don't need
Yep.
anything on it in the way of security. We'll get to that later. They got it through the test machines. Guess what? They found their way into the network. And I'm betting, because you joke about it, Marcel, and I do believe that there is a balance that you can have. You do have to break things. You do have to take some chances.
Absolutely.
But if you actually put a piece of code in front of Linus, am I saying this right? Linus?
That's the way he pronounced it.
I've
Linus.
finally been corrected. So Linus Torvald, I come in, I write a great piece of code, and it's got crappy security on it, and I pop it up in front of him. What's he going to say to me?
Well,
Let's put
actually,
it
he'll
in
swear
production.
at you is what he'll do.
Exactly. He'll say, get out of my project, because he doesn't want, because I think the disciplined Linux writers
Mhm.
are, and the people who are disciplined in the community are inherently thinking about security. And so you can build it as a habit. It doesn't
Yes.
have to, will you make mistakes? Absolutely. No matter how smart you are, there's some guy who's hacking away. He's got nothing better to do. And now he's got an AI open source model to do it with, because he can hack away at you forever trying to figure
We're
out
all
where
human.
your problem
There's
is.
always going to be things that we should have thought of and didn't. But if you go into it, the same thing, I'll flip the table completely over, Marcel, that you said that if you don't do it right the first time, you'll never build anything. The problem is, if you never think about security up front, you're never going to get security into it.
Yeah.
And
And I agree with that. I have no issues with that, but there seems to be, and I'm not a half empty, half full guy. I'm the one that says the glass is either half empty or half full, depending on whether you're filling it or drinking from it. That's where you tell the difference. What are you doing? Are you filling it up or are you emptying it by drinking it? That's the real question. And in the case of security, there are people out there, and I'm not saying you're one of them, John, but there are people out there who have this weird idea that everything must be 100% accounted for, or we can't move forward. And that is the thing that I make fun of. That's the
Yeah.
thing. that
no,
is
and I
really-
think my big thing is, and I'll call it foundational security, that you need to
Yes.
have the foundation of security in there that you can add to after the fact. But if you don't have that foundation built in up front, you can't add to it. You have to actually build that from scratch somehow after everything's already built.
Yeah. I'll
That's
take
right.
that one step further. I'll be the devil's advocate here.
Does that put him
I'm the
on my
second,
side,
I'm the
Marcel?
second chair for the devil.
The devil can afford more than one
Yes,
advocate.
yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah,
there
and
you
that
go.
is that, that we think that there's these are all trade-offs. And speed right now it's faster, it's not good.
Yep.
And guess what? We're breaking a lot of stuff, and not only breaking a lot of stuff, we're killing a lot of productivity. I can't count the number of times I go onto an application now and it's changed. And I have no idea why.
Mm.
So I go and Google the instructions for it.
The instructions are wrong
which I
because
do
they're
now.
outdated.
And the instructions are wrong because somebody's released something new and it doesn't work. So you'll spend an hour on this machine that's supposed to give me great productivity to find out how to do something obvious. And that we're doing that all over the place, and things are breaking all over the place. And so security, the other thing, you can have good security without, and then think about the user and the outcomes. How many people, like Google has been famous for developing great, smart stuff that it's just awful in terms of here's my big complaint with AI right now. The first thing that they should have done with AI, forget the great, amazing agents and all that sort of stuff. The first thing is it should have been able to have access to your documents or your email easier and help you do those things. Instead of, which we've had for months, and I'm sure we'll get past it, where I've got to go find the document for the AI, cut and paste it, and put it into this folder. The basic stuff that's missing in making this useful for people is just the last thing they think of.
So I have two things to say. One of them is we've talked about doing things fast and break things and so on. But there's an old adage that said, do it right, do it once. Saves time, saves money.
Twice cut once. Yes.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Measure twice, cut. Well,
Yeah, but
I always get that wrong.
But and Jim, you were talking about talking to the users and so forth. I used to work for Coke, and we implemented a system for all
I
of
used
the
to work for Cloud. No, sorry.
Coca-Cola.
Sorry.
Forgive me.
Oh, Coca-Cola.
Yes,
Okay.
but we implemented a distribution system for all of their bottlers across Canada. And one of the things, because we were all computer folks, right? We're all programmers and all the rest of it. One of the things that they did was they sent us all out to work at the distribution centers, to work on the trucks and everything else before we did this, so that we understood how the business worked, which made it a hell of a lot easier and better for us to help to implement these systems so that they would make them more productive in their jobs versus bitheads sitting beside the computer going, we're going to build it this way. I think it makes a huge amount of difference getting your developers or programmers or business analysts or whatever out to the business to understand things.
Yep. Can I get us back on track to
Absolutely.
where we go from DeepSeek for this. And that is, this thing is out there now. I think we've been focused on the wrong things and missed what's happened, because we're always looking at that next thing, artificial super intelligence and all that sort of stuff. We have, and there was that, this is the worst AI you're ever going to use, I think is the phrase everybody uses.
Yep.
It ain't bad, I'll tell you. Right now, we have a reasoning model. Before we came to this call, I was stretching myself to think of if I could just improve the accuracy by doing something like, having it go over what it does and check that. I can do that now.
Mhm.
If I could have a model that would actually learn from its experiences that I would have, we have that now. If I could have a model that reflected on what it did and was able to express that to me so I could see how it was thinking, it was auditable. We have that now. We have all the AI we need right now, basically almost free. I think a lot changed in the last week. And now the question I have is, how are we going to take advantage of this?
I wrote a blog post on my site more than a year ago where I talked about the idea that you've been given superpowers and now you have to figure out what to do with those superpowers. You're at the origin story of the superhero and you're the superhero. So what do you do with all this stuff? And it's really difficult to find out. Now, in terms of how we make it available to people, I think that eventually this will all disappear under the surface. Advent of really inexpensive models like DeepSeek, for instance, are going to actually push that forward a lot faster, because you will at some point have a text box in front of you or just like a little microphone icon. You're just going to say, hey, whatever, or click the little icon and then say what it is you want to do. And then the system will bring all of those things that you want to do into being. I think this is where we're heading. We're heading into every single person out there is going to have a whole bunch of little tiny agents, which are all going to be infinitely cheap, inexpensive to use, that are going to be there ready to do whatever we need. One agent for this, one agent for that, one agent for this. We will be a multi-agent species. Every single one of us will be a multi-agent owner, so to speak. And I think this is where we're headed. And this is, in some ways, this is the first clue that this is actually happening, because here's insane power at an insanely cheap price.
Yeah.
We just have to figure out what the hell to do with this.
And you don't need a lot of power to run it. The smaller agents, and just another piece of news that came up this week, somebody took the DeepSeek code, made a small agent from it. Now it's 1.6 billion parameters. I think you could run it on my phone, and they trained it for $30. And they said that they took their advice and said, next year, this will be $2. You're at maybe $1.
Yeah, I actually think I left a note about that in the pre-show notes. I want to see this $30 model. I want to see what's happening there, because I haven't seen it yet. I know that Hugging Face at the moment is actually building what they're calling OpenR1. And OpenR1 is their attempt at recreating everything, because they've got the same cluster and the same power that DeepSeek had. And they're trying to recreate that model. Now, this is going to take a few weeks, because it took a few weeks to train.
A few weeks? I haven't
to train
that
R1.
much time.
Funny guy.
I want it now. It's going to take a few weeks. I worked on system projects where we didn't even figure out where we were going to be sitting for 2 weeks.
Do you remember? No, a year ago, we would have said that O1 and reasoning models like this were AGI. We would have said that a year ago.
Oh, absolutely. They are, by the way. Jeffrey Hinton, there's a great interview with Jeffrey Hinton. Maybe I'll try and find him. And Jeffrey Hinton says he thinks that it's very possible that we already have consciousness in AI. And he made a perfect argument for it. He said, so I can do these things with AI now. And he brought up all the things I talked about, reflection and all that sort of stuff. He said, I can take a neural network. What if I replace one of your neurons with a mechanical piece?
Chip of thesis.
What about 2? What about 3? Where does it stop? Are you still conscious? And this whole thing, we get into these arguments about consciousness and super intelligence and all this sort of stuff. And you think, what does it matter? What does it really matter? These things are there, available. They will do incredible things for you. And by the way, if you just sit and wait, you'll have O1 on your phone next year.
Yeah.
Nobody's denying that. But my hope, and this is, I want you to get out to Linus, and he's on speed dial with you, I'm sure.
He's
With
not,
Linus?
but anyway.
Okay. So I want you to talk to him and find me somebody who actually takes a Linux computer, takes a smaller model of DeepSeek, which I believe you could do with a pretty good computer, because anybody missed it, Linux but a couple of guys from the University of Waterloo made Linux 30% more efficient.
Yes,
Huge
that's
impact.
big news.
That's
Yeah.
another week without DeepSeek. That would have
This would
been
have
the
been
big
groundbreaking.
story. So we're all trying to get our data centers to function more. A couple of kids at the University of Waterloo, where I taught, and a couple of kids in there probably sitting in a lab. I don't know, or maybe to a lot of them. Who cares? But they made Linux 30% more efficient. So now, with that
lines of code, oddly
with
enough.
30 lines of code, yeah. But take that, make me a laptop take the $1.6 billion, a couple of the agents in there, and do what you've been talking about, just so it comes up and I don't have to deal with Word or anything else.
Yep.
Because there's all kinds of great Linux programs for that. Just, I can open it up and say, I want to write a letter. If I want to type something, yeah, let my keyboard work, but could you pop up the document? Could you look at these two, three things? I always open my letters and close my letters this way. Thank you very much. Okay, I want to write it to whoever's next prime minister, and I want them to say, just get with the program, man. Get and send it off for me. Oh, and sign it as Jim. That's what I want to do.
That, of course, is part of what Copilot and Gemini are trying to do at the moment. They're trying to be that front-facing agent that does all of those things for you.
Yes.
And in fact, the Copilot Plus PCs from Microsoft would have that kind of smart built into it, supposedly, where you just say something. You know what you're talking about having on your phone? Let me just show you something fun here. And this isn't going to help the people who are listening to this as opposed to watching it. But this is my Pixel 8, and I have a program here called LM Studio. LM Playground is what it's called. And Playground has a whole bunch of small distilled open source models that I can actually run on my Pixel locally.
Yep.
And it works. I played with it. It's amazing. And on my PC, I also have a program called LM Studio. Now I have a few of those things, and I'm going to be hopefully today putting out a video that shows how to use LM Studio. But I have DeepSeek running, like a distilled version of DeepSeek running on my PC here. So I can actually do coding and query the model and so forth locally on my PC. It's not going to China because I have the distilled model right here available to me. And this is something that other people can do right now. And I do not have the world's most powerful PC to do this. The PC that I'm running on is a Lenovo Legion 5. It's 4 years old now. It has an NVIDIA 1660 Ti card, just to put that out of the way, with 6 gigabytes on the GPU. 6 gig is nothing these days. It's not the most mediocre of PCs, but it's nothing. And I can run DeepSeek R1 on my notebook.
It might take
I
you
feel like
8 seconds to get a response, though.
Yeah.
You know?
You gotta get the tears going though.
Yeah. But what I'm getting at is that we have, what happens, and maybe I'm just crazy, but what happens to all of these companies like Microsoft that have sold you all of these apps that get in your way? We've allowed ourselves to fall into this clunky world, even on the Mac, let's face it. I still have to call up all these. Why do I have all these applications? And I have to keep track of all these apps and all these things. Why can't I just have something that I say, this is what I want to do. You go find the agent that does that because you're smart enough to do that, and I'll get on with my life.
It may come, but I think it's,
Well, it is coming. It is coming. That is where we are headed with agentic computing.
you need
But
to,
if that happens,
Like you said, Jim, you said this yourself, Jim. It's what is taking so long.
the reason why people don't have Linux computers is because it's a little bit foreign. And I think, in fairness, the Linux guys, at least at the start of it, it was geeky and it was unfamiliar. But now you got a whole pile of people on Windows 10 who are not going to move to Windows 11, don't want to buy a new computer. There's some resistance building in there. There's a whole pile of Mac users out there who use the Mac because it is less cluttered and a little easier to find your way around. What happens when people just stop using interfaces like that. I think that a couple of companies are going to have to find, I'm sure that Microsoft will try and move into being a pure cloud company. I guess maybe to some extent, Apple makes the machines, but there's be a lot of things that are trimmed out of this. I certainly would buy that, just a simple computer that was really powerful if I didn't have to learn how to use it.
Yep. Jim, I went to Microsoft's head office in 2011 and I saw I forget what they call it, but it was their imagination home, right? The future. And you walk into the kitchen and you say, based on what I have in the cupboards, what can I make for dinner? And it knows what you have. And then it comes back with recipes for you and all the rest of it. And it's the same in a far-fetched way. It's the same kind of thing that you're talking about is, I want to write a letter. Here's who I want to send it to. Here's what I want to use, my typical template for drafting a letter. And here's who I want to write it to. Here's the basic content of what I want. Now write me a letter. Doesn't matter whether it's Word or whether it's any of these other word processing tools. You just want a letter.
I do this every day, John. I have my phone with me. If I push the power button, Gemini comes up. Or if I double tap the back, ChatGPT comes up. So I've got them both on basically a one-touch thing going.
Mm-hmm.
And if I go up to if I don't know what's available for supper, and I do this, I'm not actually kidding, every day, I will open up the refrigerator. I've got a red pepper. I've got a green pepper. I have some of this. I have some of that. I don't have any carrots anymore, but I do have onion. And I just randomly say, and then I say, what can I make with this? Mm-hmm. And it will pull up a half a dozen recipes for me of what I can make for supper. This is already here.
Yep.
You just have to know that it's here. And most people don't know that they have these things at their disposal already.
And one of the biggest things that I have seen across the board is the best way to make AI work in business is train your staff. And what you're talking about, Marcel, is exactly the same thing. Is if you want to make the best use of any of these tools, you need to train yourself on how to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And Mike, the thing I've been reflecting on all this week was, because I was thinking about this, about artificial superintelligence and all this stuff, I said, who cares? Most of the stuff that we want to do is relatively simple. It's just hard for computers to do. Think about all the things you do. And you brought this up, Marcel. You've shown your camera around your house, said, tell me what I should do about the lighting in here. I don't even have to tell my computer what I've got in my fridge. I could just take a picture. And in the same way, I can take a picture in a lumber yard and it'll count all the lumber we have. Yep. I keep going through the use cases in my mind, and I can't think of a single thing that we can't do now that we do in business leveraging AI. I haven't found anything yet.
The only thing you may find is that there are newer models and things may come up with better ways to do it, but that doesn't mean you can't do it now. And it's back to Marcel's comment earlier about you don't wait until you can do it perfectly, because then you'll never do it, right? Start somewhere, start now. Yeah. And that goes back to our day one Project Synapse is you have to play. Yeah. You've got to figure out how to use it for you.
Wow.
So I wanted to answer John's earlier question. He said, how long will it take for this? I just for fun I downloaded the model for Quen 2.5 in this LM Playground application on my phone. And I asked it to create the Python, the game Snake in Python. And of course, it's pretty quick. It's actually surprisingly quick, even on my phones. There's exciting stuff happening, and you can be part of this open source model revolution.
You just can't fit it all in. By the way, not only did DeepSeek launch this, but 2 days later, Alibaba launched their Quen model, which they claim is even better. I've tested it out. It's at least equal. It's not as much fun, I don't think.
It's not a reasoning model either, so you can't see the train of thought stuff.
You can't see the train of thought, but it's there. I gave it some of the questions, and then I put the yellow one on top of that. What order are they in? And DeepSeek went through it logically, said, and does great things. I just love it. It says, oh, wait a minute, that could be wrong. I've got to try that again. I just love, it's worth doing this just to watch it think its way through something. And then Alibaba just said, here, idiot, this is the order. They were both right.
I did a similar thing, Jim, where I said fictitiously, let's say I make $250,000 a year. What is my net income and what are my deductions and what's
It's
my
very
income tax
fictitious.
going to be? And
Yeah.
so I did this in ChatGPT, I did it in DeepSeek, and I did it in Quen. And it was interesting. I got 3 different answers, but especially focusing on DeepSeek, back to Marcel's comments, it's neat because you can sit there and watch it on screen going through its whole reasoning. And you take this number, you multiply it by this, and if it's this, then you do this, and so on. And just to follow it through. To be honest with you, I have no idea which of the 3 answers is correct, but they were within, I don't know, it was about $8,000 differential between the 3, between 155 and 162,000.
But again, was it calculating your taxes only?
No, it was everything: CPP, EI, provincial and federal taxes, the whole shooting match. And it came out and it split it out. Actually, I sent it to you guys that I took the 3 different ones and showed what the final results were. It was interesting to watch.
You could fix that if there was an error. That's the wonderful thing about being able to see its logic.
Yep.
I don't know how many people are I'm so frustrated with arguing with my AI. It can't do this thing. And I'm sitting there thinking, why can't you do this? I'm now guilting my AIs in there. I'll ask it for 4 points. It'll give me 3. I said, how many points did I ask you for? 4. How many did you give me? 3. Oh, I'm sorry. I feel like I talked about dad jokes in today's yesterday's podcast, but I feel like I'm doing dad to the AI, interrogating it. Why did you steal past 11?
But you're not far from reality here. What we have are children. They're just incredibly smart.
Yeah.
Incredibly smart children with PhD level IQs and knowledge across a variety of fields and so forth, but they're still children. And sometimes I feel like we have to treat them that way. Just for the people out there who still haven't tried this, by the way, on DeepSeek, this is actually one of the really cool things. The whole chain of thought reasoning. If you do this with the OpenAI, it shows you like 2 or 3 points of what I'm thinking through. Whereas DeepSeek sits there and you can watch the whole chain of thought. And what's most fascinating about it, and this is where I suppose we could get into the whole consciousness thing. What's most fascinating about it is it sounds like a person thinking.
Oh, yeah.
You are watching an internal monologue going on. And it's crazy. So I'm going to include these things. And it goes on this. And it is just absolutely fascinating because if you've ever paused to listen, and I know this is actually hard to do, but pause to listen to your own internal monologue. This is the sort of crap that's going on all the time when you're working through a problem.
I think if you've ever been my boss and asked me a simple question, you would have heard the same thing. Actually, I like this guy, whoever he is, behind the curtain and who's making this AI work. We get along famously. No, but I should do this. Oh, that could be wrong. Wait a minute. I better check that again. Okay. Now I've got that. No, this is good. Okay. Got that. Let me try this again. Okay. I think it's this. And you tell him it's wrong. And he goes, was almost through the face plant. Maybe I'm projecting too much onto this. I need to get some human friends, obviously.
Okay. Can I I know that we're saying all sorts of nice things and fascinating things about DeepSeek, but can I just talk about a couple of other reasoning models that are out there at the moment? And I want to focus on reasoning
Absolutely.
models.
That's why I brought up the Quen thing. This is an explosion.
It is.
This is not just one thing. Yeah. Keep going.
It's been remarkable this week or a couple of weeks.
It is. So now O1 is like, it's out there and available from ChatGPT. And I realize that there's a $20 a month thing here. One of the companies that has been out there for a little while that people don't really think about a whole heck of a lot is a little company called you.com, YOU.com. And what they do is for a membership, you have access to a whole bunch of different models. And some of the models that and again, by the way, I do not work for you.com, so I'm not taking any money for them. This is not a endorsement.
But
I'll try to get some money out of this. Yeah. You.com. Pay us some money.
I bought an annual subscription to this, and I got one for my son, who is in high school, who's in grade 12 at the moment. And he uses this thing all the time. There's a research tab on there. And the research tab obviously taps into a reasoning model. You can see the chain of thought. I'm looking at these dozen websites and so forth. And you see that in Perplexity as well, but you don't see the chain of thought quite to the same degree as you do in U.com. And U.com gives you access to, if I take a look at it right now, you've got O1 Preview, O1 Mini, GPT-4o, Grok 2, Claude 3.5, Sonnet Opus. Then they also have DeepSeek R1 is available through there, as well as DeepSeek V3, the previous model. All of those things are available in one place, and you can get an annual subscription to have access to all these models. And by the way, they also have the new Quen 2.5. Now, they don't have the graphical models. In other words, if you want to generate pictures and so forth, that's not what this is for. But from a place where you can access large language models and work with a whole bunch of these different ones in one place, that is something that you might want to take a look at. Also, and I actually put this in the show notes. While it's not an open source sort of thing, Gemini is still out there doing some fascinating things as well. And Gemini's 1.5 Pro has just been released with their new 2.0 model. It's just been updated. There is a lot happening in the field right now. And I know that we're going to have to wrap this up here, but it is a place that you have to keep your eyes on things, and things are just going to continue happening. It's just inevitable.
So why not next week? What?
Sorry, I was just going to say that tied in with that, you'll never, if you try to sit there and go, I need to know everything about everything, you'll never do it. You need to know a little bit about a bunch of them, and then you need to pick certain ones that work best for you and focus on those.
And that's why a service that gives you access to a whole bunch of different things in one place might be something you want to take a look at. Another one, by the way, that does this is Poe.com, P-O-E.com, which is by the same people who did Quora. So those are like I said, if you want to not have to look at 100 different places and maybe just plunk your money down in one place, either Poe.com or U.com. U.com has that research model, which is a very Perplexity type thing combined with a reasoning model. And for that reason, for people who aren't like 100% in the know of all these things that are happening out there, I'd say check it out. And again, I'm not taking any money from these people. I am not an investor. So.
But if U.com would like to sponsor this show, please.
Yeah, we'll have like a Microsoft sort of partnership. I'll take money from anybody. My friends, to heck with you. But Open Router, is it openrouter.com or .ai?
It's Open Router. I don't know if it's a .com, but Open Router is a little bit harder to navigate. Okay. Open Router is mostly so that you can, most people use it to grant them API access to a whole bunch of different models in one place. It's not as user-friendly by any stretch of the imagination.
Okay. So if the world doesn't change and somebody falls off a cliff and puts out a 30-cent AI that will take over the world next week, we should do a tour. We should step up a little bit and walk around and take a look at some of the things that are out there. That'd be fun. Let's think about doing that next week. Like I said, if nothing earth-shattering happens and takes over the world.
Please, maybe we can have a 1 week pause in AI development. What do you say?
But I am gonna start. I'm not kidding you. I am going to start this GoFundMe to build an open source AI for Canada, and we're gonna buy Marcel six machines. He can put on his dial-up internet and run the nation out of there. We'll find a better way to do it. Trust me. But this will be lots of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be here.
So Marcel Gagné, thank you. John Pinard, thank you. And
Thank you.
We will be back next week with Project Synapse. We will put I'll arm wrestle with Marcel to get the list of these things that we've talked about, make sure that we put those in the show notes. That it usually takes me about a day. So if you hear this and you're having your Saturday morning coffee, or you're watching it on YouTube, do not go in and put in an evil thing. You have no show notes, because sometimes, yes, I have a life and I actually take a day or so to get the show notes up, but they will be there with the list. So please take a look for that. That'll be a good thing. And aside from that, I'll be back Monday morning in my regular chair telling you the news in the world of tech. And next week, we'll be back with another Project Synapse.
All right. Live long and prosper.
Bye all.
Okay. Come on, John. Let's do that. You can do it. Yes, we can. Live long and prosper.
Thumb out, boys. Thumb out.
Thumb up. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Oh,
Forgive
yeah. Okay.
us.
Yeah. That's for the pros. Thank you, sir. Have a great week, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
All right, laterness.